Hi, I'm Kristen Hess, food stylist, photographer, and creator of the Artful Gourmet blog, YouTube channel, and podcast channel. Welcome to my channel. I just wanted to introduce a new mini series I'm going to do called Into Focus, and it's going to be really kind of fun and different. I want it to be all about business and motivation and inspiring moments and stories. Right now, it's just me, but eventually I'd love to have other people on my show to interview them, successful creators, successful creative people, photographers, food stylists, cookbook authors, anybody related to the food business or creative business. So I wanted to get started because one of my biggest questions that people ask me when I tell them what I do is, how did you get started in this business as a food stylist photographer? Like, that's such a crazy cool career. And there's a lot of ways I got into it, but I'm going to basically just give you the rundown. Just wanted to kind of give you a little introduction on how I got into the business, some of the challenges, some of the successes, and what it really takes to get into this business, and a couple things I've learned along the way. So, like I was saying, one of the first things that people ask me is, what is a food stylist? And how did you get into it? How did you do this food photography thing and blog, all of that? So, quick backstory. I used to live in New York City. I lived there for a really long time, for about 12 years. I was in Atlanta prior to that. I was a graphic designer for a long time. And I actually went to Melbourne, Australia to get my master's degree in advertising because ever since I was little, I wanted to work at a big ad agency in New York City. So that was one of my goals. I was doing graphic design and all kinds of freelance work, which I loved, but I really wanted to get into more of the creative strategy and marketing side. So I did. I packed everything up, threw it in storage, went to Australia, to Melbourne, had an amazing time, met amazing people, and even got some work experience there working at Y&R and Blue Marlin Brand Design and McCann Erickson. Got to do some work in Sydney, some advertising research. Anyway, long story short, I moved to New York and got a job at a small firm to start. And then I worked at a bunch of big agencies for the next 8 years as a creative project manager, producer on all types of different food accounts. And when I was working at J. Walter Thompson, I was actually working at Domino's Pizza at the time. And we were doing TV, radio, print, all of that. I've always loved food. And I decided to take some cooking classes at the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City, which is amazing, by the way. And at first, it was really just hey, I want to take a sushi class. I want to learn how to cook Italian food or Spanish food, whatever. And I was just doing these little one-off, evening courses for 4 hours at a time. I started jumping into more technique courses that were 8 weeks long, all day on a Sunday, learning the techniques of Italian cooking or techniques of fine cooking and French cooking. I took a food styling and photography workshop, and I was working on a lot of different food accounts. My last job before I left and jumped ship into my business, I was working at an agency called 360i, and I was heading up the whole Kraft Foods web redesign as their creative project manager. And we were hiring photographers and food stylists. We had a whole creative team redesigning all of their website and creative and food photography. And getting back to the workshop, a good friend of mine, Lori Knoop, Jim Peterson, Jamie Tiampo, they're all very respected food stylists and photographers in New York City. They were teaching this class, a 3-day workshop. And you know what? I just fell in love. I'm this is what I really want to do. Having a creative background, loved food, loved to cook. And I had started my blog actually a little bit later in 2010, The Artful Gourmet. And it was right around that time I was taking these courses. So I was doing it on the side while I was working in, an ad agency on a food account. So I had a chance, for about 2 years to really get a feel for the food media industry. And I just started networking, taking food writing classes, going to conferences, joining the International Association of Culinary Professionals. I really was in a great place to network, obviously, in New York City. Hello. So I was in the right place at the right time because blogging was just starting to come out. Everybody was into the food scene. I had already had, like I said, experience in advertising and design. So in 2012, January, I finally jumped ship. I'm like, you know what? I realized that all of these food photographers and food stylists are all freelance, number one, and they all work during the week on photo shoots. I can't do that while I'm working a full-time job at an agency. So that was really my main reason that I left. And I really wanted to be able to focus more on my blog and my brand and just jump head first, dive in. So that's what I did. And then from there, I didn't have any clients at first. If you want to hear the whole long story, actually, I did do a guest interview with St. Petersburg Foodies, a podcast in 2020, which will really kind of go more into this story. I want to let people know that it wasn't just like, hey, I want to be a food photographer. You know what? It took a lot of work. And like I said, I didn't have clients at first. I was just networking and learning, taking food styling courses, food photography courses, studio lighting courses. I took money out of my 401k to start this business. And my first year, it took a few months, but I did have a client, Michelle Collins. She had a really fun wine club. It was a social media thing where you could join her club and order these organic wines and kosher wines. Anyway, she hired me. We met on LinkedIn to do some of her food pairings and photography for her. And that was one of my first clients. And she and I hit it off and actually became really good friends. Hi, Michelle, if you're listening. But after that, I actually got 2 cookbook shoots my first year, which blows my mind because I had no experience actually doing this other than the food photography I was doing for my blog. And funny enough, I look back on my first blog post. It was like September 2010. I was sitting on my couch and I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Because, at the time I wasn't really ready to start writing my own recipes yet, or I hardly knew how to cook yet, right? Or do photography. So I actually decided to do 3 recipes. I compared 3 spaghetti and meatball recipes. One was from Bobby Flay, one was from Rachel Ray, and one was from the Williams Sonoma Comfort Food Cookbook. So it was like, I'm going to analyze all 3 of these recipes and I'm going to rate which ones worked, which ones didn't. But they all worked, but which ones were my favorite? And then kind of, came up with my own conglomerate recipe from that. And, I look back on that now and the photos were horrible, you guys. I had an iPhone back in 2010. It was probably an iPhone 3 or 4. Like no flash, small file sizes. It amazes me how Apple iPhone has come along in the past 10, 15 years. But anyway, long story short, getting back to it, the first year was a little rough just because I didn't have a lot of clients. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, this is new. What am I doing? But I did, like I said, do a ton of networking. Went to a cookbook conference. That's how I got one of my first cookbooks with HarperCollins, shooting the Pinkalicious cupcake cookbook, which was fabulous. It was through HarperCollins. I met an agent. She hired me and I hired a team of stylists and people to help me. It was a huge, huge success and a really great project to have in my book for the first year. And then after that, I started getting phone calls about, we're doing a live TV segment for Katie Lee on Food Network. And she's going to be promoting some new Super Bowl recipes that are healthy and low carb or whatever. And we need a food stylist to prepare the food, help her set up her set on television for Fox and Friends for this live segment, which was really only like 5 minutes long. But, basically I was cooking everything in my tiny studio apartment, which was probably 500 square feet right in the middle of Manhattan on 2nd Avenue. But anyway, I started doing work like that too. And then eventually I got into doing more TV commercials and videos for social for all kinds of clients like Tombstone Pizza, Captain Morgan. I had a big production company I worked with in New York City, in Brooklyn. They were amazing. We did videos for Bacardi and Captain Morgan and Kettle One. Actually, one of my Kettle One drinks, the cocktails I styled, I actually saw on the side of a building in New York City, and it was like 8,000 feet tall, painted onto a building. So that was kind of cool, but that came a couple years later, right? So again, I started just blogging, putting my name out there. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like, do I want to write? Do I want to shoot? Do I want to do styling? Do I want to do all of it? Which is actually what bloggers do. And yeah, I had a really successful career in New York. And then I ended up moving down to St. Pete, Florida for about a year, did some work with Publix and HSN. HSN was more live television stuff, and Publix was some photo shoots that we did for them for their floral signage. So we did some of their Publix apron meals. Anyway, Florida was cool, but I didn't really have a ton of clients down there. And I moved there because I had friends and people that I knew down there, and I loved the beach. So did that for a short stint. Went back up to Atlanta, did some freelance up there, went up to upstate New York to see family right before the pandemic hit. And then boom, everything shut down. So that was a big wrench, right? I had just built this huge business over 12 years. And then, well, 10 years, I guess, at that point. And then the whole world shut down. So I was like, okay. So I was kind of, stuck up there, but it was awesome. I was with my family, got to spend time with them. And I actually did get some remote shoots I was able to do at home because nobody was shooting in studios at the time. And then a friend of mine, a foodie host on HSN, had a little pad down in St. Pete, but needed to get rid of it because HSN was not shooting anything in their studio either because it's the pandemic. It was September 2020. So I moved back to Florida, did that for a year, and sort of a weird year, right? Like I was still getting clients in New York and Atlanta and Chicago and shooting remotely for clients, but it was sort of weird, right? Because like nobody was really shooting in studios. So I did most of my stuff either on location or shooting at home. So fast forward 2021, moved to San Antonio. I'm sure you guys know I've been a senior food stylist for a huge grocery retailer here in Texas for the past 4 years. And it's been great. It's been fun. But I really actually wanted to get back into the photography side of it as well, because I did so much of that in New York. And my blog, I really have neglected the Artful Gourmet over the past couple of years because I haven't had time. So that's why I started this channel again, Artful Gourmet 2.0. I still have my blog, but it's not going to be me writing so much. I'm going to be actually doing a lot of other things like I'm doing now, a YouTube channel. I did open a Spotify podcast, which I'm sure you guys saw. I posted a link, and I'll post all the links below if you want to take a listen. So I'll be growing that content as well. And so, going forward, I'd really love for this to be a place where you can come, not only learn about food styling and photography, right? You guys all know I do that. I don't want it to just be another recipe cooking channel. So many people do that. You can watch Food Network, right? Obviously I'll do some recipes. I love to cook and those will be fun, but I do want to have a little bit of other content in here, which is what I'm talking about today. The mindset, motivation, how I got into the business, some of the good things that came my way, some of the obstacles. This is all over a course of 15 years now. So it's been a while. And in the next chapter down, I'm going to actually just talk about some of the things that I've learned that stuck out, key learnings that have helped me become a success, get out of the business for a little while, even though it was in the business, but not my business, if that makes sense. And only doing like a quarter of what I can actually do, but also some of the business learnings and what it's going to take. If you want to get into this business, there's so many more opportunities now than there was 15 years ago, right? There was never full-time jobs for food photographers or food stylists. And now everyone and their brother has an iPhone or a camera or whatever. So it's, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but it's really about how to make yourself stand out, what you're going to need to be resilient because you're going to get rejection and it's not always going to be easy. Okay. So this is where we're going to just go into some of the key learnings, maybe the top 3 to 5 things that I have learned along the way, how to become a food stylist photographer or content creator, blogger, vlogger, whatever you want to call it. We're all doing the same thing, right? We're creating food and communities and using our voices in whatever format that it is, whether it's your voice, your photos, your writing, your styling, or all of it together. One of the first things, I'm just going to go kind of back into like before my days in Atlanta when I was a graphic designer, because that's what I went to school for. I did a sales job. I really wanted to move. I had just graduated college. I had no experience as a graphic designer. And I really wanted to move to New York City, but that was like super hard to break into. And I was so young, like 21 years old, right? So I moved to Atlanta with a good friend of mine. And I was like, this is kind of fun. Maybe I'll move here. Why not? Right. I was right out of college and bright eyed and bushy tailed, ready to go. So I took this sales job because I wasn't finding anything right away. And it wasn't advertising, and it was actually selling promotions to companies that were related to services and products around Atlanta. Hair salon, day spas, paintball, comedy clubs, you name it, we did it. And it was all like face to face cold call selling. So all I'm going to say is it sounds like a crazy job, and it actually was. How did I do this job for 4 years? But the one thing that it taught me is how to present yourself, how to put yourself out there, how to connect with people, make a friend, smile, have fun, enjoy what you're doing, and your enthusiasm is contagious, right? So that was one of the first lessons that I think I've applied this throughout my entire life. But like I said, I have learned how to speak to people, how to, be enthusiastic, how to talk, how to explain things, how to get people excited. I'm not trying to be a salesperson, but if you want to have a business, you need to know how to brand yourself. You need to know how to sell yourself, how to connect with people, how to get people interested in your brand. Like, why do they want to listen to you or buy your service or buy your product, right? People buy things from people they like. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is, you know what? It's not always going to be easy. It is not always going to be easy being an entrepreneur, working for yourself. Sure, you can go work for a company and have a really cushy job, which I just did for 4 years. But the rewards, if you are an entrepreneurial, very independent type person, which a lot of creatives are, yeah, it's not always going to be easy. And so you need to take how to sell yourself and brand yourself, put yourself out there and not be afraid to do that, and not be afraid of rejection. That's another one that goes with lesson number one is it's not always going to be easy. There's so much competition out there. But you know what? If you are enthusiastic and passionate about what you do, that is contagious, and your hard work will totally pay off. Number three is basically just, you know what? Don't give up. Don't give up. And don't really care what other people say. You need to believe in yourself, and you need to always keep learning. I'm always doing like a video course on some new topic. Hey, I'm just teaching myself right now how to get a podcast up and running and how to run all this video gear and lighting and get a YouTube channel going. I didn't do all that before. I had a blog, I wrote, I did photography and styling, but this is all brand new. So always learning and teaching yourself new skills and being open to different perspectives and, see what's going on around there. Around you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And always be learning, always looking for inspiration and never giving up. So that is it for today, guys. Like I said, this is episode 1 of my mindset motivation series, Into Focus. And I am going to be doing some other stuff, like I said, on my YouTube channel and podcasts. We'll be doing recipes. I'll be doing eventually some interviews with some other creators and photographers and inspiring people that you guys can learn from. But for now, I just wanted to get this out there as a kickoff to the channel, and stay tuned because I'm going to definitely be doing an episode at least once a week. And you can check out all my other channels at Artful Gourmet, like Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, all of those. I'll be doing snippets from the shows, doing other, short form content for you guys. It's not 15 minutes long, but yeah, just stay tuned. And I'm so excited to share info with you guys, and hopefully someday even doing some live, like I said. That's on another level. So we'll get there. But yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope whoever's listening, you're inspired. If it's something you're looking to get into, or even if you're just looking to start a business, hey, I've been through it. I've started a business 3 times. Okay. Freelance graphic design business in Atlanta, started from scratch. Food styling photography business, started from scratch in New York. And now I'm back, Artful Gourmet 2.0. So stay tuned because there's going to be so much fun stuff to come. All right. See ya. Until next time.